Welcome to another edition of Minot Matters here at the Dakotan. I'm Jonathan Starr. This episode is brought to you by Shocks Safe and Lock. We are joined by a key community member today. Has a lot of experiences in a lot of things. President CEO of Ackerman Asphalt, leadership role with Axel Group. I probably said that wrong. Recently joined the board of directors at First Western, chair of the Minot Chamber EDC. We could keep going, but I'll just end there.
Sure.
You're involved in a lot of things, which is awesome. And I'm so thankful you took time to be able to be a part of our podcast today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Absolutely. So before we jump into all those things, because those are the things you hear about all the time, I'm sure, and you probably get sick of hearing it. Who is Ryan Ackerman? Do you still know who Ryan Ackerman is?
Well, I certainly know who I am, right? Yeah. I'm a Minot guy. I grew up here. Spent the first 18 years of my life,
right,
living in Minot, and then got educated in Fargo at North Dakota State. Got a degree in civil engineering. Yeah. Decided that would be the preferred path for me career-wise. After college, got married, moved to Denver. Lived for a time in Denver, and an opportunity was presented to me to come back kind of on the ground floor of, a startup engineering company. So it was me and two other dudes that decided to go into business together with a, desire to do this and not go broke. So that's when we moved back to Minot in 2003 and started Ackerman Asphalt.
Denver's. So it seems like every single person that we bring on, key community members, or maybe it's people that aren't involved in the community much. It seems like they had a time where they moved away from North Dakota, moved away from Minot, and then something brought them back. And same story for you. What was it that brought you back? Obviously, business was a key part of it, but still community mattered.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, for me, the business opportunity was certainly, kind of in the front of my mind when I did that. But ultimately, be closer to family. Yeah. I think when we relocated out of state, it was, a lot of it had to do with at the time, there wasn't a lot of, opportunity here for folks, engineers kind of in particular or whatever. I mean, obviously this is pre-oil boom and all that kind of stuff. So opportunity was limited. So it was a kind of a combination of that, professional growth opportunity, starting, a business from scratch. But then ultimately, being closer to family and being able to, hang out with my grandparents and things like that while they were still around. And
that's good. And you have been able to raise a family here. You mentioned that you have one kid that's going to be on the ice and stuff. How many kids do you have?
I have two. I have a 15-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son.
Fun.
So they're, which is, it's interesting to kind of say that. I got to take a step back a little bit and kind of realize like the runway in front of me in terms of the time that they have left at home is a lot shorter than the one that's behind me. Right?
Exactly.
So, I've got some kids that are growing up and blossoming and becoming young adults. And
you have a grad party on the horizon here soon.
Yes, I'm sure that there will be. Although my 17-year-old, he's a lot like me. He's not fond of social interaction and parties. So perhaps he'll have a different idea.
Exactly.
I don't know, maybe we'll.
That's fair.
Go on a trip somewhere in lieu of having a grad party. But
you're busy, and I think that things, if you're like me, I hate the word busy because it feels like it's an excuse. But
a dog that's chasing its tail is busy, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. That's fair. So, but you are involved in a few different things, and you still have family. That's obviously important to you. How do you balance? It's an obvious, common question. But how do you balance that work-life balance between being involved in the community, being involved in these important things, while also still being a dad and a husband? Yeah.
Well, I think it's just being diligent with your time and decisions that you make and what you choose to do. I think fundamentally it comes down to that. Right. Being mindful, that certain decisions that you make about how you spend your time can affect other people. And, fundamentally taking a step back and realizing like, hey, my wife and my kids are like, they're number one in my life. Yep. And so trying to make sure that I am making decisions with that like fundamental truth in mind is really important.
That's fair. Yeah. One of the things you mentioned that when you came back to North Dakota, there wasn't, or when you left North Dakota, I should say, there wasn't as much opportunity in the area. And it seems like one of the things that you have done, and maybe you can talk about it, is you guys have been part of community development, things like that in the downtown area, but throughout Minot as well. and maybe even have helped create more opportunities for someone maybe in a similar age group as you when you moved away would be able to come and actually find something. Talk a little bit about that and some of the community development that has gone down in the downtown area and maybe even beyond that.
Sure. So as you mentioned earlier, I'm involved, not on a day-to-day basis, but with a company called Axle Group, and that's a company that my wife and I started in 2017 or so, and it's primarily focused, or like solely focused actually, on redeveloping historic properties in downtown Minot. So it's a pretty narrow focus that we have, and that was, quite frankly, really intentional on our part, because my day job on the Ackerman Esfold side, right? We have the privilege of working for private developers, and the last thing that I want to do is get into a lane where my clients are at, right? I don't want to be competing with my own clients.
That's fair.
So, the approach that we took was let's form this thing, Axle Group, that has kind of a laser focus on this historic core, because at the time our perception was that there wasn't a lot going on in that space, and it was something where we could make investments that are more community minded, and we can be patient with those investments, and maybe someday they'll get to a point where they actually cash flow and they're worth something, right?
Exactly.
But it's going to take a lot of patience to actually get to that point. But and I think too, like the purpose behind it is to try and make the community of Minot a little bit more unique, and there's nothing more unique than our history and our roots. So I think we get pretty passionate and fired up about doing that type of work.
So when you hear someone Visit Minot executive director Stephanie Shanerock mentioned that she walked with some people that were here from, I believe it was Norway, a downtown area, and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And had now city manager, I believe maybe that's not all finalized, but it sounds like city manager Tom Joyce when he was in the downtown area, he's like, dude, this stands out compared to other communities. When you hear stuff like that, because that's where a lot of your guys' development has done in those historic type buildings, that's where they're at in Minot, that probably stands out to you in a very different way.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly makes me happy to hear those things. What actually is the most gratifying is seeing the investment that's occurring around the stuff that we're doing. So
other people taking
exactly, to have other people that are interested in investing in the downtown core,
right?
Having them do that, and rolling the dice and taking the same chances that Jess and I and our kids have taken in Minot. I mean, that's the most gratifying thing.
One of the most recent ones is Citizens Alley that just recently opened. You guys had a big deal with the celebration. That was kind of a neat deal. And that this isn't the Citizens Alley isn't the point of this interview, but kind of just what is Citizens Alley? What's kind of the vision there?
So Citizens Alley, primarily my partner and my wife's vision, is, it's currently a privately owned public space.
Neat.
Really. So it's a space that Axle Group has invested in, and Axle Group was also the recipient of a grant through the Destination Development Grant program through Department of Commerce, and Visit Minot was a part of that as well. So there's been roughly, for Citizens Alley, roughly $800,000 of public investment in that space through the state, and then that's coupled with roughly $1.4 million in private investment that's gone specifically into that space, and then there's additional private investment of about $3 million that'll go into the adjacent freight house building. So the idea is to create a plaza space, a central gathering space in Minot that it's basically an extension of people's living room.
Right.
It's not intended to be like solely a concert venue. Yeah. Right. But it's intended to be just a space where people hang out. Yeah. Right. So
that's neat.
So, kind of, again, trying to treat it like it's your own, like an extension of your living room. It's a place where you can go intentionally and actually do nothing, right? That's perfect. Yeah, that's kind of the idea, right? So go there and intentionally just do nothing, just go and hang out. And it's a space for social interaction in the community that our perception is that we lack. So we're pretty pretty excited about, getting that thing off the ground.
Yeah, exactly. So people say there's not like family friendly things to do, or they say that there's nothing to do during the summer and winter, which you guys have activities that go on both times, but this kind of addresses that problem where.
Yeah, it's a part of it. I think, what's more accurate, I think the root cause of the problem that you just described is more perception than it is reality.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I think there's a lot of opportunity to stay active and to be engaged in the community. A lot of different activities that are out there. I think we're maybe putting some of those activities into a little bit different light, right? So I mean, like in the wintertime within Citizens Alley, there's going to be a skating rink. We've kind of tested this concept down there for a few winters, and it's been great.
Yeah.
Skating rinks, outdoor skating rinks in Minot, this is not a new thing.
Brand new concept.
Right. So, the stuff exists and has existed forever. It just puts it in a little bit different light and a different neighborhood and context and stuff.
For sure. I think a couple of years ago, you guys had, I don't know exactly the name of the game.
Crokicurl.
Okay, there you go. See, I was first introduced to this game when I was on vacation at my cousin's house, and they have a little board, kitchen table.
Yep.
We were flicking away at these pieces, trying to, you have to Google the name in order to understand. And then I'm driving by downtown a couple of years ago, and I'm like, wait a minute, that looks exactly like the game with curling, whatever you call them, but the
rocks or stones.
Curling rocks or stuff. Yep, curling stones going towards the center. Is that something that's going to come back?
So crokicurl, made its debut in downtown Minot a couple of years ago. That was kind of replaced with the full skating rink. It didn't really. I mean, and with all these things that we've done downtown, especially like in this. This open space or whatever, we kind of like beta test this stuff, right? We kind of try to figure out like, what do people respond to? What do they react to? What do they like? Crokicurl, we thought it was kind of cool, but I think by and large people are like, what is this?
Right.
It's much more popular in Canada.
Yeah.
Right. Which is actually, we borrowed this idea from the Forks in Winnipeg.
Interesting.
Right. So crokicurl, it's a hybrid of the Canadian board game of crokinole.
Okay. Yep.
Which is where you flick the little pucks, right? And curling. Right?
Okay.
So we kind of borrowed this concept or got this idea from our neighbors in Winnipeg and tried to bring it to downtown Minot. But again, it's something different.
It is.
It catches people's attention. They're like, "What in the world is that? Maybe I should go try it and hang out and hang out with some friends and and that that's the concept, cool. But I think what we've found is that there's a lot more engagement in the skating and, little kid hockey. I mean, that, like some of my favorite times, like down in that outdoor space is watching these 6, 7, 8-year-olds play hockey.
Yeah.
Like it is that is the best.
That is neat. Yep.
To just see the joy on these kids' faces and then they're doing it in a space that's, it's kind of got this magical feel about it with the twinkling lights and some of this stuff. And
it's really neat.
Yeah. So again, it's a privilege for us to be able to do that kind of stuff. And, we'll continue to test ideas and refine them and, hit the reset button if we need to on stuff. But, the idea is to, have some sort of activity down there, maybe 250 to 300 days a year.
Wow.
Right. So
that's awesome.
And that doesn't mean that it's a fully orchestrated event, but just having pickleball available for people to go and play and to hang out. I mean, that's an example.
And what's neat, and we're spending more time on this than I expected, but it's good because it's kind of explorative and it's been fun. Yeah. But what's different about it though is the fact that you get to go walk downtown, go to Prairie Sky Bread, enjoy breakfast or lunch, whatever you're doing, go walk behind, go play some pickleball or whatever, and then take a walk down, do a little bit of shopping. You don't have to drive to Polaris Park to do ice skating and then drive to the next place to do something else. It's kind of neat making it all come together in that downtown area for sure. All right. One of the big topics that we have that mine's going to have for a few years is flood control. We've had it for a few years and it's going to continue to be there. And I think before we jump into the details and how long this is going to be and costs and all these things, let's add some background. We were talking before we jumped on. The fact of the matter is, a guy like me, I remember the flood. I was part of the flood, but I don't know the details of the flood. I mean, I know that a lot of Minot was evacuated. I helped move people out of homes. Like, you know that part of it. But as far as being in part of meetings and stuff like that, where decisions are being made that impact North Dakota for a lot of years, or Minot for a lot of years, those details are lost perhaps a little bit on someone like me, because we weren't part of those discussions at that time. And so these are things that we hear, Starr River Joint Board, and we know that the city of Minot's involved, and there's engineering firms that are involved in this. Kind of, as we just jump into the beginning, maybe give a little bit of background, talk about some of the key players that are in this, and how the direction when decisions are being made, actually how they're formed and how they're kind of spit out of that cycle.
Okay, well, I'm going to rewind and kind of set some like historical context for some of this stuff. So in 2010, in the fall of 2010, the weather was very wet. Right. So we had a lot of rain in the fall of 2010, followed by a very early and hard freeze. So the underlying ground and the soils were like, they're basically like concrete, right? Yeah. And then the precipitation continued in the form of snow through the winter of 2010 and 2011. Right. Spring of 2011 comes, we go into flood fighting mode, right? Yeah. Like we have done previously. We had a system in place to manage these floods and things like that. That system, by and large, performed pretty well. Everything was operated in accordance with the international agreement that we in the U.S. signed with our neighbors in Canada. Yeah. But the challenge was that the spring melt was followed by several successive large thunderstorms, right, in various parts of the basin. Yep. So the runoff from those thunderstorms started to stack on top of the water that was being held back in the reservoirs. Mm-hmm. And eventually, following several successive thunderstorms, there was a big one like end of May. Okay. And that one was up by Kenmare, on the Des Lacs watershed. That one prompted the first evacuation in Minot. Wow. Okay, so about 10,000 Minot residents were evacuated like right at the end of May 2011. That peak came through. It had passed. That evacuation order was lifted. People moved back into their homes. Yeah. And wasn't 2.5, 3 weeks later that then there was a very large rainstorm that dumped about 7 inches of rain up in Weyburn, Saskatchewan. Okay. So Weyburn drains into a reservoir called Rafferty Reservoir, which is near Estevan. Yep. That reservoir was basically full prior to this rainstorm. I see. Because of the operational plan to mitigate the spring runoff plus all these successive thunderstorms. Mm-hmm. The reservoir was doing its job, right? So when you're in flood control in a reservoir setting, you expect that water level to rise, because if you don't allow that water to rise in the reservoir, you're discharging it downstream and you're flooding people out. Makes sense. So anyway, this rainfall occurs at Weyburn. Massive flooding occurred. Yep. And that water made its way into Rafferty Reservoir, which is basically full. So the operators of the reservoir had to basically open the gates such that the water that was coming into the reservoir matched the water coming out of the reservoir. I see. That way the reservoir wouldn't rise any further and overtop. Yep. So, essentially that water passed through Rafferty, came into the U.S., passed through Lake Darling, came through Minot, and it peaked out at 27,000 cubic feet a second of water. Wow. And this is, so what's that number mean? Exactly, right? So the previous system that we had in place was designed to pass 5,000 cubic feet a second of water. So something between about 5.5 times the size of what our current system was designed to handle is what we saw in 2011. So obviously massive, widespread damage. 12,000 people roughly lost their homes in 2011. Over $1 billion in economic damages, both urban and rural. We lost several schools. We lost, hundreds of business fronts. And in the wake of all of that, the community, we were trying to figure out like, what are we going to do next? Right. So the community was kind of reeling in this flood recovery mode. Yeah. The state stepped in and basically said, we're going to help the community and the region develop a master plan to help guide decision making. Because at the time, the big decision that people had to make was, should I rebuild my house or not? Right? Should I rebuild my house, or is there a chance that my house is going to be bought out by a project or something? Because there was some, talk about, we need to invest in flood control at that time. And that was being discussed, city leaders and elected officials and things like that.
Makes sense.
So then at that time, our firm, we had teamed up with other firms and proposed to the state. Our team was selected. Mm-hmm. And then we undertook about a 5-month process to develop what we call the preliminary engineering report, which is kind of like this master plan for how flood control would be developed throughout the basin. And it goes from what we describe as from border to border. So all 4 counties in North Dakota along the Mouse River, so Renville, Ward, McHenry, and Bottineau, developed a master plan. It kind of served as a basis for decision making and still serves as a basis for decision making to the state. And then as future funding comes available, then certain aspects of that master plan are then advanced into final design and ultimately construction. So we are, roughly speaking here, we're probably about 60% of the way through the implementation of that overall program. In terms of the funding that's been secured. So we're kind of, I'm describing it as 60% funded, 40% built. So that remaining 20%, that's kind of in between those two numbers. That's basically funding that is secured, that is, let's call it in the bank, so to speak, that we can utilize for construction activities that are like currently underway or planned for the next couple of years, basically.
That makes sense.
So we're chipping away at this thing, and the pace that we're chipping away at it is basically it's at the pace of appropriation. So we are building what we can afford to build based on the funding that we're getting from the state of North Dakota and from the city of Minot through sales tax. In addition to that, we get federal. There is no rock that goes unturned with regard to potential sources for funding. So we secure funding through Department of Housing and Urban Development, through HUD for acquisitions, secure funding through FEMA for certain aspects of the program that would meet their guidelines. I see. We've been the recipient of roughly $70 million through the Corps of Engineers. They're going to be participating. Actually, they're going to be building an important phase of the project called the Maple Diversion. That's going to be right in the kind of the heart of Minot. So, we are, basically looking at every single available opportunity for funding with, probably a priority toward outside funding, federal and state. And we're basically implementing things as we can afford it, right? We can't get out over our ski tips and start signing contracts that are in excess of the funding that we've secured. Like, we can't do that. So we're moving as fast as we can afford.
If you were able to get 100% funding tomorrow, then how fast can you actually move on it?
There would be about a 6-year turn from start to finish.
I see.
So it'd be about a 6-year process, 6 or 7.
Right. And obviously,
if funding was like no object, right?
Yeah. Obviously, that's not going to be an option. But and so if it continues at this pace, then essentially, if we're 60% done, then we're looking at 2035 or so is when it'd be.
Yeah,
rough time frame.
The crystal ball is always a little bit hazy when you look into it, right? Hyperinflation of in like 2022-ish, that time frame, that certainly sets us back, right? Where you start to see like single year construction cost increases of 25 and 30%.
Right, that's incredible.
We're starting to see that normalize a little bit, which is healthy, but it's not coming down at the rate that it was going up.
Because people love to talk about this part as a detractor to the flood control project as a whole, but the estimated cost of it at the beginning was around it was 1 point something billion or whatever, and now it's probably going to be closer to 2 billion or something. Ballpark on that.
So the original 2012, like when this preliminary engineering report, the master plan was developed, there was an estimate developed that accompanied that, and the number was billion. So just call it $1 billion.
Right. Yep.
Okay. That was 13 or 14 years ago.
Right.
Those numbers were represented in 2012 dollars.
Those numbers, right?
So
that's kind of the point. Yeah.
What we're seeing today is that the overall cost from soup to nuts, from when we started to when we finished, is probably going to be in that $1.6 billion range. So looking at about a $600 million increase in the 14 years, 60% increase over 14 years.
Which is in part to inflation, it's one of those interesting things. Obviously, when you're looking at a project that size, you have the chance, you don't have to, but you have the chance of overruns and all that, right? That's part of doing business or whatever. Yeah. But also 2022, substantial inflation really messes up a scope that you guys are working in.
Yeah, certainly. So, and we are trying to counteract inflation in a number of different ways. Probably the most effective way that we can do it is through a value engineering process, right? Where we take a look critically at the project that's proposed and start asking ourselves some pretty difficult questions about, like, is there a different way to do this? Is there a way that we can, a recent example, we had proposed to the Minot City Council to basically acquire a property for planning for construction of a large stormwater bypass. And I'm going to try to stay high level and not get too engineering on you here, but the trade-off there of acquiring that property and doing this other stormwater bypass is it would eliminate the need to build a gigantic pump station. Okay. And the net cost savings was about $40 million. Wow. That's a value engineering exercise that identifies that opportunity. Mm-hmm. So we're undertaking that with like every single corner, nook, and cranny of the project, and trying to be very, very critical of, certain design features and things like that to make sure that they're providing, value that's in excess of the cost, right? That they're expected to cost. So.
Your civil engineering degree from North Dakota State taught you everything you needed to know for this, and you were well prepared. Yeah. It's incredible what life throws at you.
Hats off to my alma mater.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, all right, very interesting. You mentioned that the master plan consisted of 4 counties across North Dakota that are close to this Starr River. And so those 4 counties make up the Starr River Joint Board. That's correct. When we hear that, that's what that's referring to.
Yeah, it's so the Starr River Joint Board, it's a multi-jurisdictional entity that includes representation from Renville, Ward, McHenry, and Bottineau counties. In addition to, there's a representative from the city of Minot on there.
I see.
So that's a 5-person board. Mm-hmm. Our current chairman is a gentleman named Dave Ashley. Gotcha. And Dave is from McHenry County. Yep. But yeah, again, it's Renville, Ward, McHenry, Bottineau, and then a representative from Minot. And our Minot representative is Jason Sorensen, who's the current utilities director.
Yep. Very good. Okay. And then obviously you talked about a lot of the other key players. When this project is done, when we have flood control under control, or however you would say that, what kind of flooding are we able to take on then?
So the project is designed to pass what we experienced in 2011. Okay. So 27,000 cubic feet a second. It's that level of protection that's being implemented. Yeah. And, that was not a decision that was arrived at lightly by those decision makers back in 2011, 2012, when they said, how big is big enough here? Yeah, right. I think fundamentally what drove them to make that decision about establishing that design level was, how can you look residents of Minot and the basin in the eye with a straight face and say, by the way, we're going to build flood protection. It's going to cost, let's just say $750 million. Yep. But it's going to be designed to pass half of what you saw 6 months ago. How does that sound?
Yeah,
it doesn't sound very good. No. Right. So ultimately that was the decision that was made, is to design it to the 2011 event.
What's been interesting in some of the conversations that we've heard are the people, you have the people whose houses were basically completely underwater. Mm-hmm. And then you have the people whose houses, whose basement maybe was flooded, or that they're 1 foot on the main floor or something substantially less, but still very impactful. Yep. Right. And now, like when we've listened to conversations where those people are there where their houses were not impacted the same way as some of the worst, and they're still very concerned about it. It's like, well, you might build a dike, or you might be able to, there'd be other, and that's not something that's interesting. So that's something very difficult for you guys to navigate as you go through that. Getting to a question here though, if Minot was flooded again, and it was to the same degree that it was in 2011, would there be an anticipation that would there be an expectation that in the anticipation of that flood, that there would be more diking that would have to go on?
I would say yes. So all of the phases that we build, they are parts of, what we describe as systems, things that function completely.
Right.
And provides like benefit as a system, right?
Yep.
In Minot, we currently do not have a completed system. Right. So we have the Minot flood control pieces divided into 3, what we call milestones, right? Yep. Until we complete those milestones, it won't function without emergency intervention.
Okay.
Right. So, but here's what I would say is that all of the flood control work that has been completed and that sits on the ground today, that represents levee and flood wall segments that we don't have to build up in an emergency anymore.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Herculean efforts that were undertaken in 2011 to keep things like Broadway open, we're not going to have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So what that means is that instead of building flood control around the Minot water treatment plant and around Broadway and 4th Avenue to keep Broadway open, we can deploy those resources elsewhere within the community.
Right.
And it significantly reduces our overall risk. Right. So like as we're implementing stuff, even though the system is, you're not gonna be able to sit back in a lawn chair and watch this thing function until we're done.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like from a risk perspective, we're much better off today than what we were 14 years ago. Much better off.
Yeah. And then once 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whatever, we'll be able to answer that question a few years from now. When it's all completed, then there wouldn't even, you can't say 100% because you don't know exactly. But I'm just saying the 27,000 cubic square feet of water, if you had that same pressure, there would not have to be any diking at that point once it was all completed.
Correct. So no significant emergency levees. There are things that have to go into place that take operational, activity. So in people, they see these, they drive through them every day on like 16th Street near the water treatment plant, right? So there's
way cool.
There are aluminum logs and planks that basically go into place across that roadway when a flood comes. That's at a certain level, right? So, as that flood is forecast, then operational triggers go into place. You'll see these road closures go in and things like that. So like, I joked a little bit earlier and said, well, the next flood comes, we're not going to be sitting in our lawn chair. It's never going to be that way, right? I mean, it always takes operational intervention. Yep. But doing something in a controlled fashion, like putting in a stop log closure across 16th Street, that's a heck of a lot different than building a 20-foot tall clay levee along 4th Avenue in the mud and the snow and the rain and the muck
that you hope holds.
Right. I mean, this is night and day difference in terms of what our
absolutely
steps are.
When you run down like a drone video or aerial video, I don't know what exactly it was at that point, and you run down some of the footage of what was going on, it is flat out incredible, the measures and how I really feel that some people forget of how resilient Minot was before the flood. We remember the after effects. We remember, I think all the 16-year-olds remember that, pulling whatever out of people's basements and everything else. But there was a ton of work that went on beforehand. There was trucks everywhere hauling dirt. People that had commercial operations were helping the city. It was incredible the amount of work that went into that. Certainly
all hands on deck and significant support from, our federal partners like the Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and others. I mean, there was a ton of resources that were deployed in this area to help, fight that flood.
So one of the maybe not neat things, but unique things about it is I believe the Burdick Bridge that we know now, that's going to be relocated a little bit. And I'm sure there's a few other things like that in the project that are going to make a substantial impact on Minot in that it will forever be changed. It's not just that there's now system that you said that's going to block off 16th Street and for a flood that doesn't really affect people's day to day, but these other things, it will be a different bridge that my kids drive over than I drove over. What are some of the, maybe I will use the word neat, but maybe unique is a better deal of things that have come out of the project that is kind of neat for you, perhaps, that you're like, yeah, I was able to be involved in that part of it.
In terms of what's been built thus far,
or even the full project as you see it.
Well, yeah, I mean, so there's some really nerdy and cool things
that
are going to be coming. So the maple diversion is riddled with things that engineers get excited about, right? Yeah. So there are 2 river closure structures. So structures that will cross the current river with a series of gates on them. And then when a flood is forecast, those gates will close. Okay. And then the river water will be diverted through this new diversion channel. Oh, wow. Interesting. So these will be, large mechanical systems that are on the river that, I think they'll be very unique. Yeah. Probably the part that I'm most excited about, though, it's actually associated with some of the ecological mitigation that we have to do. So in Minot, our context is that, I think we have historically viewed the Mouse River as it's fear and loathing. Yeah. Right? Yep. We fear it because of the floods. Right. We loathe it because all we have for flowing river is trapezoidal rockline ditch. Yeah. And then it's flanked by these lovely things that we like to call the dead loops. Right, yes. Right? That are disgusting.
They are disgusting.
The reason why they are disgusting is because they've been deprived from the single natural resource that keeps them ecologically viable, and that's flowing water. Okay. Right. So as a part of our ecological mitigation for the project, the flood control project and this maple diversion, we're actually going to be able to open up these historical meanders, the dead loops, at Oak Park, and then just downstream of there at Nubbin Park. Nubbin Park's kind of a, probably not widely known. Like, what is Nubbin Park? But there's Oak Park and Nubbin Park. And when we do that, we're actually going to restore flowing water through really the only natural sections of river that are unaltered in the community. Right. And it's going to create, I think, a wonderful opportunity for members of the community to actually enjoy the Mouse River or the Service River as a resource. Right. Because this isn't something that we currently have. Yeah. Right. Like going on a kayak paddle down the current Mouse River is not all that enjoyable. Right. Because you're probably going to roll an ankle getting down to the shore. Yeah. And then you're going to be paddling, and it's going to be this beautiful rock line channel that you're in the middle. I mean, it's ugly. Yep. Right. And then you're going to get a half mile downstream, and then you're going to be like, oh, okay, I have to portage now over this Lowhead Dam. Exactly. Right. Or I can try to go over it and then get caught in the hydraulic roller downstream of it and drown. It's all bad. Yeah. Currently, from my perspective. But once we do this mitigation and open up Oak Park and Nubbin Park, we're actually going to have kind of this uninterrupted stream flow from at least the Minot Water Treatment Plant where that dam is at. Right. All the way downstream to about the pool at Roosevelt Park. Okay. Which it's roughly, I think, a 2.5 mile or so paddle, which that's a good part of an afternoon. Awesome. And you're going to be going through Oak Park and being in these areas of the river that, have natural tree cover, that are shaded, that are ecologically viable. There will be fish in there. There will be critters in there, beavers and muskrats and things like that kind of call the river home, right? So, that stuff coupled with the recreational opportunity that's going to come with the project in the form of the greenway for trails and things like that. I'm really excited for that because that's the part that we're going to be able to utilize as a community 99.9% of the time when we're not actually flooding. Right. That's exciting for sure. It's being built for that 0.1% of the time that could potentially ravage an entire community for decades, right? And we need that infrastructure there to give us that resilience. For sure. But when that's not in operation, we're going to have a heck of an amenity when we're all said and done here. So that's a part that I'm, as a community member, I'm excited about. I want to be able to, bike up and down the greenway. I want to be able to hike. I want to be able to kayak through Oak Park. I mean, never thought about doing that as a kid. Right? Kayak to Oak Park and also just walk through Oak Park and it'll be way more beautiful. Yeah. In Oak Park is already splendid, but you do have that side where it's the dead channel and you're like, stay away from it because depending on the day it may stink or whatever else, Right. And that's going to be a completely different environment. So that is pretty exciting. Yep. Very cool. Well,
That's exciting. It's good to get, and we've talked about doing a whole documentary on the flood, but it's good to get more context of what's going on with the flood and all that. And obviously there's a ton of meetings that someone can go through and watch and listen to, and because there's a lot of information that is out there. Yeah. We've looked through some of it. But thank you for bringing some of that. Another switching topics, another thing that you're actually, before we go to another thing, we'll do something that we do with first time guests sometimes, and that's a rapid fire question round.
Okay.
So rapid fire questions, whatever you feel like saying. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
You're a coffee guy.
Oh yeah.
So then
pots a day.
Pots a day. Yikes. So just straight black.
Straight black.
Nice.
Yeah, I like coffee flavored coffee.
Okay, very good. Early mornings or late nights?
Late nights.
Late nights. You don't like the morning? Or
but morning is typically 5:36 somewhere in there.
I see you're crazy.
So sleep is
what is sleep?
Overrated.
Yeah, I guess. I guess we already know the answer. You've answered this one, but we'll ask it this way: NDSU Bison football or UND Fighting Hawks hockey?
This is a tough one for me because I'm an NDSU alum, but I'm a closet UND hockey fan.
Not anymore.
Well, right.
Yeah,
no, it's pretty obvious.
It's pretty out there.
I've got a hockey background, so I like UND hockey. In the context of, well, put it this way. Today, I'm bored with all the national championships that my alma mater has won.
Okay.
In football?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna go UND hockey.
He's going UND hockey.
Yeah, we gotta double down on.
Should NDSU go to the next level then?
Yes.
They should go to the next level.
As quickly as possible.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Really? Okay. Downtown loft, or I'll use suburban house, but I think more rural house, 10 acres out in the country.
Downtown loft.
Downtown loft. I like it. Book or podcast?
Book.
One day we'll get you.
Sorry.
Yeah. Summer at the lake or winter in the snow?
Winter in the snow.
Okay.
I like to ski.
Yeah, and it adds into the hockey too. Yep. So kayaking the river or golfing in the Souris Valley? Kayaking every day.
I'm not a golfer.
Doesn't enjoy golfing. No. I see. Favorite local restaurant in Minot? You don't have to answer this one, but we still throw it out there. See, this one it means someone might be offended.
Yeah.
So we'll go like top 3 or not favorite, but you're gonna go. You and the wife are gonna actually be able to take a night and go out to eat. Where are you thinking?
Well, I'm gonna split it up then by meal.
Okay, there we go. This is good.
Breakfast, Prairie Sky Breads.
It's the win. Okay.
Lunch, I'm gonna go with Iron Horse.
That's a good choice.
Supper, I'm gonna go with Starving Rooster.
Starving Rooster. All downtown. I like it.
Yeah.
Support the down community every time. Last question here. Steak or burger?
Steak.
All right. I like it. We need to get another steakhouse in the downtown area.
There's certainly room for one, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So very good. All right. Now jumping to a different topic. One of the things you're involved in, we've heard about it recently at a city council meeting the chamber, Minot Area Chamber EDC. A question that has been before the city council a lot recently is funding sources, not necessarily whether or not funding would be there, but where that funding would come from. And I understand that could be a bigger question than just that, or a bigger statement than just that. But specifically, there was a lot of highlight put on the importance of economic development and that coming from sales tax numbers. So before we jump into the sales tax portion of it, from the chamber's perspective, what is economic development?
Well, I think from the chamber perspective, and from my perspective at least, economic development is in large part investing in our strategic disadvantages. Okay. To try and improve upon those. So, at the city council meeting, I cited a couple of examples, but I'll reiterate some of those. We're at the geographic center of North America. Yeah. Right. It's exciting. It's a cute bumper sticker.
Yeah. Right.
But from a logistics perspective, that sucks.
Yeah. Right.
Especially when you are an exporter state.
Yeah.
that relies on international markets. When you're at the geographic center of the continent, that means you cannot find a place that's more distant from a seaport.
Right.
That is not good logistically.
At all. Yeah.
So we at the Chamber, EDC, we believe that investing in infrastructure and projects that can basically improve our logistical disadvantage are important. Additionally, another disadvantage that we have is lack of access to two pretty critical utility resources, and those are natural gas and water.
Okay.
So right now, our ability to accommodate industrial growth in Minot, which industrial growth is important because it's primary sector, it's new wealth in an economy.
I see.
Our ability to do that is to do those types of development is limited because we don't have like industry scale access to natural gas or water.
Right.
The NAS or Northwest Area Water Supply System is going to address our water shortage piece within the next couple of years, knock on wood, that we get that project done as a region. The natural gas side is a little bit more bewildering to figure out. So, we at the Chamber EDC have been very, very engaged with strategic partners to try and figure out how can we get industry support and entice investment into a large diameter, high capacity natural gas pipeline that can bring resources from the Bakken into Minot.
I see.
That'll do, two things. Thing number one, and this is the selfish perspective, is that it's going to bring natural gas to Minot, and that's going to entice industrial investment and growth in Minot by industry. Thing number two, and this is more from a benefit to the state perspective, is that by getting more natural gas out of the Bakken, it actually unleashes additional potential to produce oil out of the Bakken. So a part of the oil production out of the Bakken is limited because of our inability to get rid of excess natural gas. So this is, an idea that's beneficial to both us locally and to the state. So so we at the Chamber, we invest in these things to try and, improve our strategic disadvantage, if you will. But then what we also do is we will facilitate potential industry investors and help them through a process to hopefully get to a yes about investing in Minot. So what happens, oftentimes or frequently anyway, is that let's just say an industry, I'm going to use a fictitious example here because most of what we do, it's bound by NDA, non-disclosure agreements, so we can't talk about the particulars. You can tell them here though, if you'd like. But what I can say is so a previous pursuit. I'll just talk about something that we worked on a couple of years ago that we weren't successful at. And that was chasing a sustainable aviation fuel pursuit. So the concept was to basically take soybean oil and convert that soybean oil into jet fuel.
Oh, wow.
Okay. This is a massive idea, multi-billion dollars. It's unfortunately currently being built east of here, which grates us, right? But the reason why it's being built east of here is because they had access to natural gas that we didn't.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So now what we do when these pursuits or potential opportunities come in is we are engaged with those investors and with their investor groups, and we're trying to sell Minot as the place to invest. We're trying to make sure that if they have any uncertainty or questions about what Minot has or doesn't have, that we are at least giving them all the facts. Yeah. Right. I mean, so it's a marketing effort. It's a communication effort. But then on the strategic side of things, if they need to move certain rocks out of the way, or if they need certain investment, then we can tap into potential resources like the Magic Fund or look at state partners, depending on the scale here, right? I mean, getting a natural gas pipeline from the Bakken to Minot, that's not something that the Magic Fund is going to be able to put a dent in because there's not enough money there. Right. But if we can secure support through efforts to advocate with our state legislator or other key legislators or appropriators from across the state. I mean, those are the types of activities that we're going to be heavily engaged in. Right. So, again, the idea of economic development, it's investing in ourselves. Yep. Right. It's about making sure that, the investment that we're making in terms of a cost that we're getting a commensurate return on that investment, that a dollar invested equals at least $1 out, if not more. I mean, obviously the objective is more. Right. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I would say.
That's really good. And I asked this question to visit Minot. I'll ask it to you. And sure. Honestly, it might be a little bit unfair to ask you specifically, but we'll take a go at it. When you're looking at economic development and like the returns, because that's like you are in your own business, you care about the returns. If you guys are going to go and build a new office, then you're going to be worried about how much money you're going to make through that office, or have a different level of return that you're tracking for that. How do you guys track the inputs that you put into the outputs? Because like you said, sometimes there's misses. So there's soybean operation that you're talking about, but that miss is because there's not the infrastructure that's needed in the area. Maybe you have to invest in that infrastructure. How do you guys, it's a weird game to be able to track. It's not just cut and dry on the spreadsheet. This makes sense. Right. How do you track it?
Well, I think our current practice is one where we do it more qualitatively than quantitatively. I'm an analytical type of a guy. I'm a quantitative guy. That is something that I'll be honest with you, from my perspective, I think we can do a better job at is quantifying, rates of return and things like that. But I want to insert a pretty important caveat. Yeah. That our view of this needs to be longer than
one cycle.
Right. It needs to be longer than a year. It needs to be longer than a month.
Right.
It's let's take real estate as like a surrogate example here. Right. Right. Once investment is made in real estate, in order for like a real estate project to be mature to the point where it's like 100% occupied, right? Mm-hmm. That might take 5 years. Right. Okay. So if there's an investment in my hypothetical, my real estate project, you probably want to take like a 5 to 10 year like window that you're going to evaluate this in, and then make your determination based on that. That what I would describe as a reality of like how to look at this, that runs contrary to our desire for immediate feedback. Yeah. Right. Like I want to know right now. Absolutely. What did my dollar return me in 12 months?
I mean, I got Robinhood, the app, I know up to the minute of what my returns are in the stock.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. In the stock market. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic. Right. And if you want to invest in stocks, that are largely, maybe even exclusively outside of Minot, right. You can get that immediate feedback. But if you're going to invest in like macroeconomic moves here to move the needle strategically for the community over a time span of decades, you have to take a step back a little bit. And again, I'm a numbers guy, and I believe in numbers, and I believe that doing economic analysis for all this stuff is really important, and that we need to do this work. But again, it's all about making sure that we're looking at it through the lens that is the most appropriate.
I'm sure that when you're talking about bringing a big project to Minot, whatever that project would be, you're looking at a year, 2, 3, 4 of recruitment, of making sure that all the variables work, and then you get the payoff. It's not something that happens in 6 months. What kind of window would you say that if somebody is trying to look at that? I understand it's going to be difficult to give probably a single year window to it, but is it like a 3-year window? Is it a 5-year window? Is it 6-year, 3 to 6 years? What kind of window do you think somebody should be able to gauge that success off of?
I think in terms of like a specific opportunity or a specific pursuit, from the time that we hear about it to the time like they announce that they're going to do something in Minot, it's probably in that like 1 to 4 year window, depending on what they're proposing to do. Right. The ones that are in the more like 4+ year window, those are generally speaking bigger ideas, more stakeholders, more investors. Those are probably $1 billion type scale investments, where a lot more buy-in on both sides, like community-wise, but also like the industry and investor side. A lot more buy-in has to occur. Right. The ones that are on the shorter time frame, it's generally smaller opportunities, but those can be equally impactful, right? So I mean, we
need all sides.
Yeah, we need it all, right? And like from the Chamber EDC side, like it is chasing the large scale stuff. Mm-hmm. But also investing in the entrepreneurs that grow something from 1 or 2 people in their garage starting out, right? So Chamber EDC has a program that they started, I believe it's been 3 or maybe 4 years in the making now, called the Co-Starters program.
Yep.
Where it's basically training entrepreneurs to start and run successful businesses. So it's, again, investing in the very granular, homegrown folks that have an entrepreneurial itch. We're going to do that because that's important. That's really important.
Yep.
But there's also other important things that are, include large scale industry and things like that. So
almost brings us full circle to the beginning of the podcast when you mentioned opportunities in Minot, and it's just creating those better opportunities, whether you're just the entrepreneur or whether you are the $200 million corporation that's looking for that level of opportunity as well. Right. Whatever it might be. All right. Well, we're at 60 minutes, 55 minutes. So it's been a good podcast. I was going to talk to you about a couple other things, but I think we'll come to a close on this. Appreciate you coming on. As you look forward for Minot, from the chamber, from your role in the different areas of the community that you're involved in, what does the outlook of Minot look like? Are we? I ask this question a lot. Are we trending in the right direction?
I think we are. I think the let's call it constructive dialogue that we have, right? At let's say the city council or other political venues. Yep. I think that's all, by and large pretty healthy. Yeah. I think everybody has the same outlook in mind. Sometimes I wish that things would become a little bit more pragmatic and practical and less political. Right. But ultimately, like all viewpoints are going to lead us to a better, end result here or conclusion as a community. I guess I've got rose-colored glasses on, but I'm forever bullish on Minot. Right. Yeah. Right? I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. Right. I love this place. I will continue to invest in this place until I'm gone. Right. Right. And I guess my objective is to leave this community better than what I found here. Right. In 1980 when I arrived here. Yeah.
Without choice.
Yeah, right. And ultimately, I think what my wife Jess and I are most passionate about is creating the environment where people like our kids might want to stay. Yeah. Or they might want to move to. Right. Someday. Exactly. And there's no reason why we can't get there. I think it takes focus, it takes commitment, it takes investment. It does. It takes grit, determination, tenacity. Yeah. Right?
All those good things.
Nothing seems to happen without headwind. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to kind of grit and bear some of that stuff and get through it. But
perhaps it just takes a hockey player, because it sounds like all those things are something that a hockey player needs to.
It's such a good game. So many life lessons to be learned from hockey, at least the part that happens on the ice. I won't speak to what happens off the ice with hockey players, but
very good. Well, appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone for watching this episode of Minot Matters. Hit the Dakota and be sure to like and subscribe. We'll have more content just like this headed your way that you'll want to hear about. Thanks for watching this episode and have a great rest of your day.